I've got this cardboard here to protect my piece because it is a little fragile. Work this in a little bit. And what I'm going to do on the front edge, I'm just going to put a piece of cardboard in just to say I did something. So, he's got to go that way. Let's get this miter where it needs to be. That looks about right. Oh, that looks good. That looks really good. Get this guy flush. So, I used the putty knife, and I'm just getting the glue underneath the clamp because you're not really going to be able to take it off after. So sanding is pretty limited with this plywood. I'm just going to work this along. And wet this panel a little bit. I'm going to put this box underneath. There we go, we're snugged up here. We'll get our last one on over here. Alright, looks pretty good. So let's get this guy on. So slide this across the table. Move the bench cookies. And freshen this up. It's still tacky, but I just want to make sure it's get a good bond. On this thing. So let's put another little bead on there. Alright, so I don't have clamps long enough, so we're just going to fire just a couple brad nails. So the one thing when you're firing brad nails, and I'll explain after, because I'm kind of under the gun right now, so let's get this corner lined up. So we'll get this guy at the right height. I'll fire, so that looks pretty good here. That end looks pretty good too, so I'm just going to snug this up. Actually, you know what? I'm going to grab our offcut of walnut just to support it while I hold it, while I tack it in. So I'll lift this up a little bit. Slide this underneath. There we go. That's better. A quick wipe. Okay, so we're nice and flush here. This corner looks pretty good. So I'm clamping this corner to make sure they line up, and there we go. That's better. Fire a few nails into there too. And there it is. There we go. Close that gap up a little bit. There we go. She's all glued up. So now, just want to make sure that there's no glue on the tabletop, because it's going to give you grief later if you don't clean it up now. Alright, so we've got our piece all clamped up. Nice and clean. Our miter's pretty close. I'm going to have to clean that up a little bit. And then this is really good too. So I'll show you how to fix this up, and we can get that miter a little tighter. So anyway, now we gotta wait for it to dry for a couple hours, and we're ready to sand. Alright, so we got a hairline crack here, and I think it was because of the first little bit of glue that I put in kind of cured on me before I was able to nail it in, and it just barely fits this thing in there. So it is a decent little gap, but the wood filler I've got here is I'm using Timbermate walnut, so I'm going to use this in the corner, and this is great stuff. Let's fill that gap a little bit. It's got a nice smell to it, and that's a sarcastic nice. It's got a bit of a stink to it, but great product. So we'll work it into that gap, and we'll grab our damp rag and get it all out. There we go. Now I got a few nail holes to fill too. I'll fill those. Alright, so we'll let this dry. It dries pretty quick, and then we'll put a clear coat on this. Alright, so let's give our corner a quick shot here with the sandpaper and clean that up. I want to give this top a little micro bevel on the corner. So we'll just give the top a little micro bevel, and you could give it a round over corner if you'd like. You could sand it by hand a little bit if you'd like, but you should always break the corner of your material if you're going to stain, or I'm not staining, but I'm just going to clear coat. But you should always break the corner. Otherwise it creates a bit of a weak point for the stain or the clear, and it could chip away. So I'm just going to run the trim router over the edge, and I've got this nice chamfer bit. So we'll just do a little test piece. And I don't want much of a chamfer, just a little bit. So that's a little bit much. I'm just going to back it off a little bit. That's perfect. That's perfect. The total width of this chamfer is probably a heavy 1/8 of an inch, maybe up to 3/16. So let's give this thing a quick pass. Micro chamfer on that piece there. And yeah, just clean this thing up and give it a shot. It's ready for some clear. So first we'll give it a dust off. Alright, so I dusted it all off, and then we'll just give it a quick pass with a clean damp rag. So I'm just going to make sure I'm using a nice spot here. I'm going to use I would have liked to brush it on, but with everything going on, I'm not going out to the store to go get some. And I've got this stuff. It's a spray-on lacquer. A couple coats of this, and it'll I'll probably do 3 or 4 coats. And this will have a nice hard finish. So let's see what it looks like. So there's a few types of masks. One is, I think it's a carbon filter, but it's made for anything that you can smell. This is what I was told. It's for anything that you can smell. If you can't smell it, then you use the filter that's, these are for asbestos. So I use this on, like, for demolition or anything like that. Any dust that gets in the air. This I use for anything with an odor to it. So I'm sure it doesn't always apply like this, but I think for what I'm doing, this is more than I need to know for, you know, general carpentry. So make sure you wear the right mask. It's dangerous to spray lacquer without a mask. It's bad for your lungs. So let's get this thing clear coated.